There's so much meaning in everyday words that we don't really notice a lot of the time. And the instructions for how to live, how to get the most out of life, or just how to feel most alive, are within the words. Let's look at something like aspiration, and we'll talk about inspiration too, but aspirations are when we take a part of ourselves and we kind of squirt it out into the world as a potential point B on the map. And so an aspiration is something that you can only give so much to. Like if you were to aspirate a needle or aspirate something, it's kind of you're withdrawing from it. Whereas inspire is kind of to draw in. And so when we're aspiring, we're giving to a goal. Once we've given to that goal, what more needs to be given? What more needs to be given than that first reaching out into what could be, that first direction? To aspire is to breathe out. It's to breathe life outward into something. It's to express in a particular direction. And I think you know this when you feel into the word. Now, to be inspired, when people say I'm searching for inspiration and all of that, it's like saying I'm searching for my next in-breath. To inspire, it's to sort of bring life into oneself and to feel like you have something to express. So, aspiration and inspiration are as interconnected as the inhalation and exhalation, except it's the other way. So aspiration is the exhale, the expression. And when you aspire and you move and you exhale and you give, you express. The next thing is like if you were a sponge, you would have squeezed all the juice out of the sponge, and then you're ready to be inspired. You're ready to breathe in again. You're ready to take things on, to take life in, to feel renewed and to kind of relax and let it all come to you and meet you. So I think when we simply breathe into these words, or we feel into these words as we say them, they often contain a layer of meaning which is far more complex and beautiful and well-rounded and juicy, and yet less heady. We don't have to define them based on other people's terms so much. We can feel into how this word lands with us. Even a word like resonate, 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 resonate. Resonate is like such a beautiful sensory word, and you can feel in there that there's this resonate, there's this like rhythm to it, there's a tone to every word, but there's these meetings in the consonants resonate. And there's the vowels and the space in between. So this is just a little scraping of the surface of a few words, and I'm doing a lot of writing on this at the moment because I've been inspired by a book called Consolations, which my partner gave to me, and it's the everyday. It's kind of the deeper meanings behind everyday words. And if you look into language and how it's formed and how it forms thoughts and how it feels in the body, and you spend a lot of time sitting with words, I think you'll come up with your own really interesting discoveries. And I do suggest you do that. Explore the connotations that come with the words you use, because the repeated use of these words is like the repeated use of codes. And until you know that words are like codes, until you know that they bring particular implications and connotations and implicit beliefs, you're kind of bound by them. When you become aware of that, it's okay. You can kind of let it go. It doesn't really matter that it's got a connotation. You can play with words, you can flip words. They don't have to mean what they have meant before. But be aware that they can hold and do hold often a charge, and how you feel emotionally and the state of your body and your intent when you say them is a lot of that charge, a lot of the essence that comes through language, both when we receive it and we digest it and when we express it to others, is non-verbal. It's feeling based. Of course, otherwise words would just be sounds, blah blah blah. Like you say a word and you strip back the meaning and you start to think animal, that's a animal, like what are those sounds? So I guess the last thing that I'll say on this, when I was at school, we had we'd play indoor soccer, or we'd play outdoors too on the turf, but we'd have these year level matches at lunchtime or whatever, and it was a pretty multicultural school in Melbourne. And there were a lot of Asian kids, and there were a lot of sort of mainly Indian kids, Sri Lankans too, and some kids from, you know, Middle East and all of that, and not many white kids, because it was a select entry government school based on academic merit primarily. And so, like, as you probably know, a lot of the second generation immigrants, the parents are like, they have this real sense of opportunity and instill this work ethic in their kids, and so the kids really, they're studious and they're appreciative of their opportunities, so they work really hard academically. And so, like, select entry schools, there's a lot of that. It's kind of the culture. White kids kind of have had it easy in a way, you know, their parents probably have more money, they're local to the place, they don't really need to study that much. In general, this is a generalization, of course. Anyway, so we'd play these games at lunch, and we didn't know how to divide the teams. So we would call it like Asians versus whites and curries. And you could listen to the word curry and you could think, fuck, that's so racist. But it just wasn't. In that context, at that school, I'm not saying it's like this everywhere, there was just no charge to the word. There was no sense of animosity. There was like, yeah, obviously curry. Like, obviously it's a piss take. It's not. And we would all be such good friends. It's just that we needed some differentiator to divide the team. So for the task of soccer, we would go by skin color. It's like, yeah, why not? Who cares? Doesn't make any difference what color our skin is, so let's just use that. It's like, you're wearing a red t-shirt, I'm wearing a blue one. You know, we're okay with doing this. With legit sport, we have like a red corner and a blue corner in boxing, but we can't use skin color as a differentiator because people take it so seriously. I love that dude. I think he's like a Rasta dude who's popped up on Instagram or Facebook, and he's like, what color is your mind, man? Like, he's like, you have water, and it doesn't matter what color the bottle or the can is, it's still water. Like, we all bleed the same. So, you know, there's a place to appreciate the seriousness of words and the meaning of words in certain contexts, perhaps. But once you realize what they are, that they're just differentiators pointing to something, then I think it's also fun to destigmatize words. And rather than constantly be finding more and more different words to react to our fear of certain language creating reality, like if I call someone black, it's like, oh, and I believe black's bad. Oh, I can't call them black. Now I have to call them not colored, because that used to be so fucking the coloreds. Now you've got to say people of color. Yeah, cool. Like, you end up creating more and more and more words to get around something which is fear and judgment based, when in the first place that fear and judgment could just be dissolved and the word could be destigmatized. And if you don't want to destigmatize language, then you need to live by the rules that have been imposed on people by those words. It's like you're taking the words more seriously than the human, and you're allowing a particular intention in a word to continue existing rather than sort of depolarizing and dissolving that intention or that charge in the word. So rather than just have to keep inventing new words, why don't we just start to be more mindful of our intent, more mindful of our energy, more mindful of like how we're actually approaching one another and how we're approaching relationships in life. And if we come through that with like pure hearts, then it doesn't really matter what words we use. You can get away with a lot. This is why comics get away with so much too. If you're a comedian, you can say anything provided it's comedy. And so like the comic or the jester archetype is someone who's always laughed at. And so you can laugh at their stupidity, but at the same time, because they're not pretending to be serious, they can drop profound truths and everyone's guard is down. So it's an interesting way to live. And words and language are so formative and so powerful if we give them that power. If we remember what the true power is, which is our awareness and the nature of the way we project it onto one another and reflect it back, if we remember that that's the real power, then we also end up dissolving these stupid games where people like passive aggressively say things with the right words but are still just totally, you know, emotionally off, and you just know it. It's like you're saying all the right things. Like politics is a perfect example. You're saying all the right things, you're using all the right words, but I just know that there's just this complete lack of sincerity in what you're saying. So yeah, this is people don't know that they're craving this deeper connection beneath the words and the labels and the colors and the superficial until they can see that it exists. So like people always ask for things. I want a red car, I want a new house, I want this, or, you know, whatever it is. They're asking for it because of what they think that's going to bring or represent or what they're going to feel. So if you can demonstrate to them that something else can feel so much better than what they've asked for, because you're really coming through your heart, then they'll quickly realize, because people are smart, people just aren't aware of how these things work, but they're smart, they just haven't thought about certain things, they're busy. People realize, oh wow, that's actually a much better alternative, and I think I'm going to go with what feels more substantial and more real, and I think I'm going to let go of that idea that I had about how things had to be. So language, just one of many gateways to invert the meaning process so that we can access more of what's meaningful in the present, in the now, and be a little bit less bound by the pointers and the labels. If you're living according to pointers and labels and constructs that are just social consensus and kind of like a little bit wanky in that sense, then you're never going to touch the crux of what it is to be human. And if you can soften those a bit and explore the role of them and use them as tools, and then play with those tools, then you start to realize you're the one using them, and life becomes much more rich and beautiful and connective and interesting. And when you want to play the game of words and language, you can. You can create poetry, you can write beautiful letters, you can understand how to work around people's sensitivities and at the same time gently dissolve those sensitivities. So that's it, that's all I'll say. Just by the river here, watching the fish. Hope you're having a beautiful day.